Hello and welcome to my living room. Doing a little bit something different today. I don't really see movies as often as I used to in theaters, so I was trying to think of a way to different videos to upload, different subjects that I'm interested in talking about. And on the subject of movies, still, of course, I would like to talk about some guilty pleasures. So this is going to be an sporadic series of me just talking about movies that I like, but I'm kind of ashamed that I like them. This first review is going to be about a movie that just popped up on Netflix, and I watched it a bunch around when it came out, and loved it. And I thought, oh, I haven't seen it in so long, so I watched it immediately, and I started thinking, I kind of want to talk about it. And that's Doom, one of The Rock's earlier movies. Not good, but I will still watch it often, probably from now on. It's a little hidden gem from my childhood. First, I'm going to talk about why it's bad, why I'm ashamed of liking it, and then I'm going to talk about why I like it regardless of the faults. So let's get into it. Now, if you don't know what Doom is, it's a loose adaptation of the popular Doom video game series. I've honestly never played the video games, so I'm not sure the premise of the video games. But in the movie, an elite space marine group is called in to a Mars base that has initiated emergency quarantine procedures, and they basically got to go in and their original mission is to rescue the people there and kind of figure out what's going on. That's the premise. So inherently, it's kind of a horror premise. And that kind of sets up my first problem with the movie. The first glaring issue with the film, for me, is a technical one, and it's the lighting of the film. It is so dark. It reminded me of AVP Requiem, which is another one I might have to talk about at some point in the future. But the lighting is so poor. You can't see what the hell's going on. And there's really no excuse for it. Even if the premise is essentially in a haunted house, a decrepit haunted house where there's the power's long gone. Still, you find creative ways to light it properly, and so you can see all the cool, gory stuff, the monsters. But this movie doesn't even have that excuse, because there's a scene in the middle of it where it's been dark for 20 minutes now. And you think it's, all right, well, I guess the power's out. They're on quarantine or whatever in this facility, so the power's probably out. But then they look at the wall and flip a light switch, and the lights come on. And it illuminates whatever they were looking at that moment. But then they never do that in any other room. And it's just like, why does it have to be so dark? It's so pointless. Doesn't set the mood or anything. It just makes it confusing. So that's just the first glaring thing, almost from the get-go, that is just bad. The next thing I think they just royally screwed up in the filmmaking process is the location, the spatial awareness within the film. In this base, there's basically, on Earth, there's like the command center, where there's the teleporter thing that shoots you off to Mars. When you get to Mars, you land in a very similar looking facility. And then, from there, the location just gets super confusing. The people are running between the med bay, the genetics lab, the archaeological dig site, this and that, and it all looks the same. And you never really know where anyone is in relation to anyone else. Or any other, where this room is compared to this other room. So it's really hard to orient yourself in this world. I just think it was poorly set up. That there's no clear location defining moment in the movie. And in a film which is basically shoot the monsters, you can go with a simple layout. There's maybe one main room, and then one hallway that goes off, and it should be simple, but it's not. I've seen it a bunch of times, and I get confused. I eventually don't care, because it's just a stupid horror action type movie, but it's still something that's just, why could it not be it's a simple fix? Why not just make it easier to understand. I also want to say the pacing could have been better. There are a million false starts in this movie where you think it's gonna, the grooves are gonna catch and you're gonna really get into the thick of it, the horror action that the movie builds itself on, and it struggles a lot. It basically doesn't catch it until they have this also horrible but fun first-person shooting scene towards the end. That's when it feels like it's finally like kicked its plot in, and it's just like with 20 minutes left in the movie. So it was just kind of strange pacing, which is unfortunate because it really starts off pretty exciting. A basic scientist running down a hallway, getting picked off one by one, and then the last guy is looking over his shoulder all frightened, and then it cuts to the title screen and you're like, ooh, wonder what's happening in this lab or whatever. So when the Marines show up, you expect them to like find the stuff and get into the thick of it, but they take a while to do it, and it's too bad. Now, all the negative things being said, and there have been some that are being left unsaid, or else this video is going to go on for an hour. Despite all of it, it is a guilty pleasure of mine, so I still enjoy watching it. Why? Because it toes that line and crosses it on occasion into so bad it's good. The lighting thing, that's just frustrating. That's just bad. But the pacing thing, it cracks me up that they can screw that up. And it's a video game adaptation where the video game is just shooting monsters constantly, and the pacing struggles so hard. You'd think that would be the easiest part. But it's just kind of mind-boggling in a fun way. Like, how do you screw that up with this kind of adaptation? And then it's especially hilarious when they overcompensate and they literally just have, essentially, you watch a 5-minute segment of a first-person shooter video game. It's literally just the gun in front and just picking off monsters. And it's like someone realized the pacing was off and it was kind of boring. So they're like, let's literally just cut in like a cutscene from a video game. That'll fix it. And it just feels horribly out of place, and in the most hilarious way. I don't know what it is. And of course, one of my favorite things about the movie is it's one of The Rock's earlier roles, and in addition to that, it's also, I can't think of any off the top of my head besides this one, it's a villain role. And nowadays, The Rock has this rock solid, no pun intended, kind of movie film persona where he's this tough but nice guy, kind of gentle giant type character in all of his movies. So he has this kind of reputation. In this movie, he goes real bad, and it's great. I love it. It's such a nice juxtaposition looking back when he didn't really have his groove in Hollywood yet. He plays just a horrible guy, but he has an arc, a nice character arc into this horrible person, where he starts off, he might be the central character, and then he turns into this monster, quite literally. And it was just a fun, it's a fun transformation to watch, knowing who he is now and how he acts now. It's a lot of fun to watch. And really just the broad range of acting on display by the cast as a whole is really entertaining. You got, on the one end of the spectrum, you have something like Rosamund Pike's character in the film, where every reaction is, what? There are monsters out there? Oh no. Type stuff. All the way up to The Rock's over the top, losing his mind, Sergeant. It's just a lot of fun to watch from everyone involved. Sometimes in not the good ways that they were probably hoping for, but what can you do? Guilty pleasure. Now, there are a couple things that I actually liked because I liked them, not because they were so outrageous or bad. When you can see it, the monsters are pretty cool looking. Those brief glimpses you get where you can actually see these things, they're pretty impressive. They're mostly practically made. Not a whole lot of CGI with them, so that's much appreciated always. So there's that. I thought the final showdown between the Rock, the monster Rock, and the unkillable Carl Urban. I thought that was a lot of fun and actually pretty surprisingly well choreographed fighting in probably what is one of the best lighted scenes in the movie. And it's not saying much, but still, it was a lot of fun. There are a couple of good one-liners thrown in between the punches. So you know, there are some things that I liked just because I liked them. I wish those likable moments were in a better overall movie. It would probably miss my guilty pleasure list and be on an actual favorites list because I like these sort of simple, isolated horror premises. But yeah, it's still fun. And, I'll give credit where credit's due. So yeah, that pretty much concludes my feelings on Doom. I'm not really gonna give a rating for it. How do you rate a guilty pleasure? It's bad, so on one end I want to rate it low, but a guilty pleasure, so I like it. So what can you do? It gets the guilty pleasure rating. That's what it gets. So yeah, not a good movie. Like it all the same though. So yeah, it's been a slow weekend for going to the theater to see movies. So I'm putting this video out. I'll probably do this in the future. Definitely will. There are a million guilty pleasures I want to talk about, but I'll dole them out over the course of a significant period of time. Next slow weekend, I'll have another one out. I don't know what it will be yet, but look forward to that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.